The heist of Chief Timothy Adeola Odutola's estate, including the property company, Odutola Holdings Limited. Perhaps nothing more graphically indicates the motive for Chief Adeola Odutola's murder than the list of those who, as of 2023, the directors of Chief Odutola Property Company, Odutola Holdings Limited. The estate's worth has since been reduced to a fraction of its original value in 1995 when it was violently captured. Chief Adeola Odutola's murderers and their children are in 2023, 28 years after he was killed, the only directors of Odutola Holdings Limited. His biological children, alive and being medical doctors, lawyers, a chartered accountant, a Fellow of ICAN, an engineer and factory owner, industrial chemist, and a tech entrepreneur, are not directors of Odutola Holdings Limited. Also, the first generation of biological sons and daughters, Mr. Oladipo Odutola, first son, a lawyer and economist, Mr. Ademola Odutola, second son, a businessman, and Mr. Sunday Adedapo Odutola, third son, an economist with MBA Harvard and owner himself of factories including Chief Mrs. Adebisola Okupe and Chief Mrs. Folorunsho Adeuja, also an economist, did not sit on the board of Odutola Holdings Limited in the 28 years since Chief Adeola Odutola was killed. I know you're probably scratching your head, how is that even possible? The simple answer is, paternity fraud, diabolical hypnotism, ishiju, virulent witchcraft, followed by forgery and murder. In 2023, 28 years after Chief Adeola Odutola was killed, the murderers and their children, in reality, total strangers to his biological children, looking nothing like persons of Chief Adeola Odutola's lineage, clearly issues of their own biological fathers and grandfathers, are now, effectively, the owners of everything Chief Adeola Odutola ever owned. A glimpse of the paternity fraud, diabolical hypnotism, ishiju, virulent witchcraft is this. Modupe Oduwole, a well-known prostitute in 1950s Ijebu-O-de and one of the sex workers paraded by Alhaja Ayinke Aberuagba, a popular brothel owner at the time, claimed in 1960 to be pregnant by Chief Odutola, yet she did not give birth until 1965, 5 years later. The child, now known as Mrs. Oyeyimika Adeboye, was not fathered by Chief Odutola, but by Dr. Adewunmi Adenuga, the Odutola family doctor at the time. The striking physical resemblance leaves no room for doubt. Dr. Adenuga, a decent man by all accounts, was likely diabolically ensnared. In 1960, with the help of Alhaja Ayinke Aberuagba, Modupe and her mother, Alhaja Oduwole set out to shame and disgrace Chief Odutola, a very busy man who was tricked and unaware of Modupe's true background. In 1960 was already a nationally recognized industrialist and politician who already owned 3 factories in Ibadan, Kano and Onitsha, was bestowed the Ogbeni Oja of Ijebu-O-de 4 years prior and was just elected a senator of the upper house that same year, in 1960. After considerable pressure and with the aid of Madam Ayinke Aberuagba, in a calculated attempt to blackmail Chief Odutola, Modupe and her mother were eventually allowed to move into the Onibudo House, a vast family compound roughly the size of 3 football fields that he built in 1939. Later, Modupe claimed to have suffered a miscarriage after 6 months of her claimed pregnancy. Her mother, Alhaja Oduwole, heavily entrenched in witchcraft, joined Modupe in terrorizing the other children in the household. Together, they diabolically forced their way into the fabric of Chief Odutola's life. Someone should remind Mrs. Oyeyimika Adeboye that no amount of facelifts, nose jobs, cosmetic surgery, or skin bleaching can change who one's biological father is. Modupe, Mama Yinka, didn't stop there. The paternity of her third child, Mrs. Bolanle Akintoye Akarele, Bolanle, was never debated. Everyone in the family and close to the family knew the truth. The former principal of Adeola Odutola College, Mr. Adebiyi Sangosanya, is the biological father of Bolanle, that is Mrs. Bolanle Akintoye Akarele. The story of her fourth child, though similar, requires some explanation. Mr. Adekoyejo Odutola, Modupe's only son, now a medical doctor in the United Kingdom, is widely believed to be the biological son of Mr. Godfrey Unuigboji, who was the principal of Federal Government College Odogbolu at the time, and with whom Modupe had an affair. Mr. Unuigboji, also a decent man, was likely diabolically seduced by Modupe. In reality, however, Adekoyejo could have been fathered by virtually any man in Nigeria at the time. You may ask why. Well, according to Mr. Bamidele Idowu, aka Go Slow, Chief Odutola's loyal chauffeur for over 30 years, who drove Modupe around during her stays in Lagos with Chief Odutola, said she frequently met with different men at Ikoyi Hotel in the late 1960s and 1970s. Coincidentally, in the early 1980s, Mr. Idawu died in the only car accident of his life while transporting Modupe's daughter, Bolanle, who was about 11 years old at the time. Remarkably, Bolanle emerged from the crash without a single scratch. It was particularly unusual that Mr. Idawu, Chief Odutola's personal chauffeur, a much senior driver, was assigned this task, especially when two younger junior drivers who also lived in the compound were available. The fatal accident occurred around the same period Mr. Idawu had reportedly begun speaking more openly about Modupe's Ikoyi Hotel activities in late 1960s and 1970s. Adekoyejo Odutola is not Chief Odutola's biological son and bears absolutely no resemblance to the Odutola family. Also on the board of directors of Nigeria's eighth largest company, Nigerian Breweries Plc, one of the perpetrators, Mrs. Adeyinka Aroyewun, granddaughter of Shosanya and daughter of Bateya, totally unrelated to Chief Odutola by blood, a director of Odutola Holdings Limited, is also the director representing the Odutola family on a board seat, reserved at Nigerian Breweries Plc through Odutola Holdings Limited for the Odutolas. I know you're again scratching your head. How could this happen when well-educated Chief Odutola's biological sons and daughters are well and alive? Again, the answer is simply paternity fraud, diabolical hypnotism, ishiju, virulent witchcraft, followed by forgery and murder. Mrs. Adeyinka Aroyewun's mother is Mrs. Adebisi Bateye. As you can see, Mrs. Bateye bears no resemblance to her mother, Grace Ogunlesi, or to Chief Odutola. That's because she strongly takes after her biological father, Mr. Shosanya from Shagamu, inheriting both his facial features and his charcoal black complexion. Mr. Shosanya was Grace Ogunlesi's first husband who later died. Madam Grace Ogunlesi, aka Mama Eliba, Mama Shop, or Mama Detola, kept insisting that the pregnancy she was carrying in 1930 Adebisi was for Chief Odutola. More on Grace Ogunlesi. Mr. and Mrs. Shosanya were married at the Methodist Church, Makun, Shagamu, in 1926. Their first child, Detola, born in about 1928, died in his early years. In 1936, when Oyeyimika was barely 2 years old, and before the Odutola household moved to Onibudo House, Grace Ogunlesi was caught performing diabolical rituals, terrorizing the other wives and children. As a result, she was expelled from the household by Chief Odutola's younger brother, Alhaji Jimo Odutola, and never returned for the remainder of her life. After Grace's death in 1977, her daughters, Mrs. Adebisi Bateye and Mrs. Oyeyimika Adelurin, pleaded with Chief Odutola to allow her body to lie in state at the Onibudo House. Chief Odutola firmly refused, stating that he had long divorced Grace, the same Grace who had been expelled from the family in 1936 for the chaos and terror she had brought upon the Odutola household. A few years later, however, Chief Odutola held a lie-in state at Onibudo House for his late wife, Mrs. Epiphania Adeola Odutola, a devoted partner who had played a key role in helping him build his fortune. Adebisi and Oyeyimika deeply resented both decisions and never forgave Chief Odutola. On Adebisi and Oyeyimika's childhood, Adebisi and her sister Oyeyimika, that is, Professor Mrs. Oyeyimika Adelurin, were not immediately accepted by Chief Odutola, who initially denied paternity and insisted they were not his children. As a result, the family referred to them in Yoruba as Bini Biko, meaning, in this context, they are not. Chief Odutola kept returning them back to their mother in Shagamu. Their mother, Grace Ogunlesi, was relentless. Time and again she armed them with charms and diabolical reinforcements, sending them back to Chief Odutola's compound in Ijebu-O-de to force their way into a home where they were not welcomed. After a few years of pleading from Chief Odutola's mother, Madam Sabina Otubajo Odutola, before the girls were finally allowed into the compound. He took them in, and they were cared for by his wife, Mrs. Epiphania Adeola Odutola. He later sent them out to live with friends and family. Grace Ogunlesi's paternity fraud, diabolical hypnotism, ishiju, virulent witchcraft finally paid off. Despite their forced proximity to Chief Odutola's household, the Bini Biko duo never truly belonged. They never bonded with him. They never lived under his full care. They were never his biological children. While constantly going out of their way, parading and claiming to be his favorites, they hated him for their troubled childhood. They never forgave him for sending their mother away. They hated him for refusing a lying-in state of their mother's corpse at Onibudo House, but later having the lying-in state of another of his late wife, Mrs. Epiphania Adeola Odutola, a few years later. They refused to hold their mother accountable for any of it. They refused to blame their mother for the terror and witchcraft she unleashed on the Odutola household in 1936, which set all these problems in motion, a misguided judgment that Chief Odutola never fully understood. And that detachment and resentment, coupled with deranged greed and the fact that their mother was the only wife who bore no sons for Chief Odutola, made something terrible possible. Plotting Chief Odutola's murder over a long period with no compassion, no guilt, and no hesitation. That is a glimpse of the horror, deception, the paternity fraud, diabolical hypnotism, ishiju, and virulent witchcraft which the murderers and their mothers forced into Chief Adeola Odutola's life for 65 years.